Woo! Are we live?
Live at 5.
I think we're live. Welcome everyone. My name is Dave McCoy, and I'm going to be hosting this world premiere of Liam and Hilary's film Drop. And joining me on screen are actually the stars themselves, Liam, filmmaker, and Hilary Hutcheson, the one and only. How are you guys?
Well, how are you doing?
Or excuse me, how are you too?
Doing great. It's kind of a
Good.
big night.
Glad to hear it.
Yeah, thanks for everybody joining us.
Yeah.
Big night, Earth Day. Probably got some friends in the audience. We're all celebrating together. This is really cool. I want to thank everybody involved for sure, and Dave.
Absolutely.
Dave for hosting us here, official, unofficial MC.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I'm checking in from Bellingham. Dave, where are you at?
I'm in Seattle. I'm just a little south of you.
Okay.
I can actually hear you talking off camera. I'm close enough to you.
Yeah.
And
Hilary, I assume you're in the mountains?
Yes, I'm at the top of this where this drop starts, and you guys are at the end of the story and the other side. So we've got the beginning and the end covered. Yep.
I hear you got a few drops of snow today.
Oh,
I hear you got a few drops of snow today too.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. I've just been waiting by my phone to see if clients are canceling to fish tomorrow, but no, we're tough. They're tough, and I'm glad. So we're going to be out there in the elements. It'll be good.
Awesome. That's healthy for everyone for sure. So as we get ready to start this thing, Liam, what were some of the fun parts of making this film?
It was all fun for sure. It was an incredible journey to get to start up in the mountains outside of West Glacier, where I used to live for a little while back in the day. Was incredible, and to get to bring Jeremy Jones up there and to start this whole kind of journey through the watershed right there in a place that I'd spent a lot of time was really special. I worked on the Middle Fork of the Flathead through college, out of college, and yeah, to get to start the story there was cool. It definitely felt like the universe conspiring to make something happen, and that's where Hilary grew up and has spent a lot of time and lives now. And yeah, so I guess the beginnings was exciting. It was super exciting, and that was yeah, kind of about this time of the year a little while ago, and we scored a little bit of snow up there, and then got to follow the melt right down into the Middle Fork and saw Jeremy do some fishing in the Middle Fork, and yeah, I guess the beginnings was maybe the most exciting part, because you didn't know exactly what was going to happen on this whole trip. And but yeah, there was a lot of highlights, and I'm excited to share it all with everybody. It's a lot of stuff I've been looking at for a while, and a story that we've been working on for a while. So now to finally have it out there in the world is exciting, and to get to share it in this platform. Like I said, my first virtual premiere is a little different than some of the premieres I've been to. I'm sure a lot of you out there are feeling the same, but it's exciting for Earth Day. Like how cool of a way to gather all the people that care about this stuff. So this is what we're doing right now, and I'm excited to be here. But yeah, I don't know, maybe Hilary has some other exciting insights for us.
Yeah, no, I think it was a ball to make, just because it's, kind of what we do. It's not outside of our normal lives, being in the mountains, being on the water, and then being able to talk about what's important to us. It's something like, Liam was saying, we've been talking about for a long time and couldn't really illustrate. And my partner Evan came up with this idea of just following the drop, like very literally, because we've been talking about all these things that a drop of water could see if it's a fly on the wall, and so being able to have Liam make that come alive was just the coolest thing.
Was there an impetus for this story finally getting kicked off? Like, did something happen, or?
Oh yeah.
You two?
Yeah.
Yeah. Explain a little bit of
that. Well, there's a little bit of a sad story to it, and I'll explain the bummer of it all. But the exciting part was, way back when I was a journalism student at the University of Montana, we were practicing setting up television studio cameras and lights, and had this assignment to go find people out on the campus and bring them in as like guinea pigs to learn how to do interviews and how to set up. And Dr. Dan Faegre at the time was in Missoula, I had heard, working on the Terra Space satellite, which is taking pictures of, glaciers from space to kind of look at some of the changes. And this was 25 years ago, over 20 years ago. And so I was like, oh, I'll interview him, and other people were kind of like interviewing a mascot and the cheerleaders and like, the guy who makes the smoothies or whatever. And I took it really seriously because I thought it was interesting. And when he sat down and I was doing this little practice kid interview, he started talking about all of these predictions that he had based on science that he thought we would start to see in this area over the next 2 decades. And then after that, throughout the next 2 decades, all the things that he was saying were coming back to me like checking boxes in this dream. Oh yeah, this happened. He said that. He talked about these wildfires being hotter and longer, and he talked about the runoff coming 3 weeks earlier and not having enough left for us in the late summer. And he talked about the white bark pine. He talked about the pica, and all of these little things that he was talking about then were actually happening. And so suddenly being able to talk to him again was kind of what drove me to try to make this happen with Liam. Liam came to me and was like, gosh, let's come up with some ideas. And I was like, oh, this crazy thing's been happening. I've been seeing all this stuff happen over the last 2 decades. And so just sitting down with him and being able to figure out, how to make it work, it just came to life.
Liam, when you came to Hilary with the idea of creating something, did you have this sort of already in mind, or did you two collaborate to come up with this plan?
Yeah, no, it's super collaborative for sure. I was just feeling like the need to leverage my skills as a storyteller and somebody who uses like moving pictures to tell stories for good, like wanting to do a film that was, I don't know, like left the audience wanting to go and do something, either take an adventure or act on some kind of purpose they feel, or, just to get active for the environment and the earth. And so, yeah, just trying to make a film for good, make a film that had a cool message that encouraged people to, look into conservation and saving all these wild places we all love. And then it just kind of took form after Hilary and I had some conversations and bounced some ideas around Eben too. And yeah, it just kind of, the idea being, that whole water cycle that we're all taught in the 2nd, 3rd grade, the water starts at the top of the mountains and it runs all the way out to the ocean. And then just trying to really trace that and follow that water and meet some people along the way who are doing good things for the planet and are setting good examples. And then trying to use the film as a sort of like positive peer pressure campaign where we're just showing people that are doing cool things and then just letting the audience kind of, take it from there and putting examples out there. And that's kind of what I feel like was important for me, was to do something with the skills I have. For Hilary too, she's an advocate, activist, and she's essentially going to bat for the environment every day. She's out there guiding, and so yeah, just wanted to do something good for the planet and for each other, all of us. Yeah, that's it. I don't know. A simple, grand ambition, Dave.
No. Does simple and grand go together?
Yeah. That's what, to me, that's what this whole thing is. I mean, we start to see in this film how these things aren't necessarily simple, but they can be normalized in your life, these solutions that you'll see, but it is this big grand thing and it all kind of comes together.
Yeah.
I thought it was really cool how the story starts and finishes and how you walk it from the point of origin to the Pacific, and the how you keep it. You don't go super intense and super political. You don't go super deep into the science. You just keep it very pragmatic through the story. I think that actually makes for a really compelling, I don't want to say argument, but it certainly puts things in a very digestible mode. I'm going to be really excited to hear how the audience responds to this after the film. Yeah. Hilary, for you, what, day in and day out on the water with clients, what is that? How does that conversation often start when you're with somebody you've never spent time with before?
Yeah, well, for starters, I'm never just starting on a soapbox at all. People don't jump on my boat and I start talking their ear off about climate or the planet or anything like that, you know. But they are asking me questions. So more and more every single year, there's more sophisticated questions in my boat. People are asking me about what's going on out there. And so I feel like it's my role and responsibility to have those science-based answers. It's just as important as saying, like, why does the purple chubby work so well on the North Fork? You know, I mean, these are super important answers that I have to be ready for. And so that's why it was important to me to start to really educate myself a long time ago and study and learn what's happening out there so that I can speak about what's happening in our ecosystem at a great scale. And being able to be in Glacier, which is this big global outdoor classroom, has been huge for guiding for sure, and just for being part of the outdoor industry here. And so to answer your question, Dave, people ask me questions. They're coming because they want to be in this beautiful place and do these cool things. But there's such an elephant in the room that they don't want to leave these things unsaid. They ask me and I need to be ready with the answers.
That's got to be a pretty cool feeling, actually, to just know that people are seeking you out for who you are, and the minute they get in the boat, get the small talk out of the way and just get down to brass tacks of why does the purple chubby work so well.
Lord, it's terrifying. It's terrifying. I mean, like, you know, I just want to get him down the river, but then suddenly you realize there's so much more to it, and it's so big and important, and you're just like, oh, I'm just not a fishing guide, you know. I'm part of this experience, you know, out here, and we all are, and you'll see that in the film as well, talking to the guides who play this really important role in this film.
Yeah. So Earth Day, obviously this thing's airing on Earth Day. That's pretty awesome, Liam. That's got to feel pretty good.
Yeah,
especially
on Earth Day. Yeah.
I know, especially considering what our current president pledged today with the reducing of greenhouse gases and emissions by 50% by 2030. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah, and world leaders, you know, all over the place making pledges, and pledges are one thing for sure. Now it's up to us. We got to all keep these guys to their word, these men and women to their word. Yeah, and keep the pressure on, and, you know, talk to our local politicians and all that, and just do what we can as individuals to I don't know, find our own way to be an activist. But yeah, it is incredible that we get to do this on Earth Day. Just kind of thinking about back to where we were a year ago on Earth Day, and I just feel a lot more positive today. It's a beautiful day here in Bellingham. Cherry blossoms are blooming. You know, you can smell the air. It's great. So this feels like a celebration for sure. And I don't know, there's a lot to be happy about, optimistic about right now. There's still a lot to do, and I think that's why we all just need to keep foot on the gas and keep going, and finding a way that each of us can kind of leverage our own skills to keep making stuff happen for the planet, for each other. We're all part of this planet. Earth Day is like our day. We're the Earth,
Yeah.
Earth us, you know? So
For sure.
Absolutely.
yeah, we're just part of it. And so, yeah, it's special. It's cool that everybody's here. So thank you to everybody who's here to join us. This is cool. This is our community, you guys. Let's keep doing this.
Yeah.
So as going back a little bit with you, Liam, what made you pick up a camera?
Nature. Yeah, I guess simply put, like really one that.
Did it start with video, or did you start with
still
stills?
cameras? Yeah, it started with still cameras, and it was just being in nature and like seeing beauty, and then I guess trying to like to want to hold on to it and capture it, and not forget about that beauty. So I would say what started me was nature, and then that's just like propelled me through life. Really is chasing experiences outdoors and trying to document it, and hanging out with friends, and just have those memories. And so I think, yeah, it's kind of like, you know, trying to capture all these little memories and hold on to them, and then someday be able to pass that off to my friends and family, and show them what I've seen, because I've been super lucky to see some incredible places. And the older now that I'm getting, and I've got some young ones, and feeling the need to not just take images, but share the images and share the message of fighting for these places so that they're around, and really feeling that desire to like double down on doing good work for good reasons, and using these skills to share the beauty and share what's going on and how we can all try and affect change, make things happen to the planet.
For sure.
Sweet.
So Hilary, as someone who, like myself, spends most of my waking hours outdoors and with other people, I feel like it's almost a duty to have the experience that we provide these people be an imprint upon them to sort of lead them down that path of what Liam was just referencing. Is there, and I know you've got a daughter that's starting to maybe guide.
Yep, both of my daughters work up at Glacier Raft Company, Glacier Anglers, where I started back when I was, in high school and in a junior high even, and they have been up kind of, just running around there ever since they were little. And now if people come up and go on a whitewater raft trip, Ella could be your guide this summer. And she's, I know it's scary when kids kind of start doing what you did, because I know it was like to start way back then. And so she's guiding, Delaney's working in the fly shop. So it's nice to be surrounded by them, get off the river and they're there. And then this summer to be able to see Ella out there on the whitewater stretch will be pretty sweet. Yeah.
And they're both obviously taking your parenting and what you've impressed upon them and extending that themselves, I assume.
I don't know if anything I tell them is like the right thing ever. I mean, that's our vulnerability as parents, right? I have no idea. But I hope because my parents taught me things that I took very seriously, and I felt, I did well by, and they did well by me with a lot of that advice. And their biggest advice was that we don't pass go out here unless we commit first to protecting the resource. So that was since I was little. They were like, we're so lucky to be able to have this land. We recognize our privilege to be on native land and be able to access it to work and play. And they taught me that from a very young age. And so, yeah, I'm psyched to get the kids out there and to have people be here and watch this. And I think we should get it. Let's go.
That's awesome. How old is yours now, Liam?
I have two kids. Cormac is Cormac's 5, and Sage will be 1 year old in 2 weeks. So a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old. Yeah,
They'll be on the river soon.
You've got a lot of free time on your hands these days.
Yeah, what's free time? Sage is walking now, so it's crazy. We got this rickety, little.
Amazing.
It looks like a tiny old human, but it's a tiny brand new human.
Little Benjamin Button.
Yeah, she's doing good.
Well, I know since we're ready to show this thing, just want to send some special thanks out there to Patagonia for sure, to Orvis. Thank you so much to Orvis for being there since the very beginning, working on this film. Of course, to Yeti also being there since the very start of all of it, in the conversations. And of course with POW, with these sponsors, we've all just said, is this crazy? Is this cool? What do you guys think? And they're like, yep, let's do it right now. So yeah.
Thanks for all the support from everybody. This has been an awesome adventure. I'm excited to share it with everyone.
All right. So I think we're ready to show this.
Let's do it.
So without further ado, we would like to present Drop. Enjoy, and we will see everybody in about 18 to 20 minutes.
See you on the other side.
20 years ago, I was told by one of our nation's leading climate scientists that my world would change. And he said if I wanted to see for myself, all I'd have to do was follow the water. That's what I've done for the better part of 2 decades now. As a fly fishing guide, I spend the majority of my time rowing, drifting, waiting. And I have seen it change. I've never forgotten his suggestion. And now I feel the pull to take it literally, to follow a drop of water from the very top all the way to the ocean. I know the planet is in peril. This trip will be one that looks for solutions in action. I want to meet the people whose lives are built around the water and see what they're doing to fight for the earth they love. To begin, I went to reconnect with that scientist. I wanted to revisit our conversation from so many years ago and glean some knowledge to take with us as we follow our drop downstream. Meet Dr. Dan Fagry.
My classified title is research ecologist, but we call ourselves mountain scientists, cryospheric scientists, physical scientists, so we're a number of different kinds of scientists. Been a bit surprised that I've lived through some of the changes that we projected. Our snowpacks have been in a 50-year decline. Melt is initiated early, up to 3 weeks earlier. A lot of the water that, say, a rafting company, fly fishing guiding company would have has already gone past before the tourists even arrive. If you are warming up earlier and the melt is coming earlier, the trees start growing earlier. The trees are now using up more of the water, and now you have potential for more fuel-driving forest fires. You take all of these things together, and there are what we call cascading ecological effects. There are lots of tiny little changes going on in this ecosystem, but sometimes they're hard to measure. And so whether we're looking at tiny little alpine plants like this, or you're looking at a drop's journey to the Pacific Ocean, these are the things that help us understand the bottom of the process, if you will. One of the things we found is that many things that are going on in this ecosystem scale up. And so you have to look at the small processes in order to see how the big ones occur.
Following Dr. Fagry's line of thinking, I was inspired to explore the small processes. This quest starts on the middle fork of the Flathead River, moves downriver through the Flathead to join the Clark Fork River, to Lake Pend Oreille, into the Columbia, and out into the Pacific Ocean. Along the way, we'll meet people living and working close to the water. Can we do what they're doing? It's like Dr. Fagry says, a lot of the processes in our ecosystem scale up. Maybe we can scale up solutions too. To start following the drop from its origin, we decided to set out for the top of the Continental Divide. I called up a guy known for pioneering big mountain lines on his snowboard. He's also known for his quest to mobilize the outdoor industry to solve the climate crisis. Professional snowboarder Jeremy Jones founded the nonprofit Protect Our Winters in 2007 to create a community of athletes, scientists, creatives, and business leaders who would advance nonpartisan policies to protect the planet. Jeremy recognized the scale of these climate problems early on, and he knew then that it would take a mass movement of nature lovers to effect positive change.
So it's really cool to think we're on the top of the Continental Divide, and this snow here that we're standing on, this melts, goes into the rivers, out to the ocean, and you think of how many people's lives have been shaped around this water that starts here. Can't remember, is it like 9 and 12, 1 and 5, 10 and 2? Now what do I know? That was awesome. My founded Protect Our Winters in 2007. I realized that the outdoor, specifically the winter sports industry, was not doing anything on climate. I by no means was this climate expert, but my life revolved around the snow. I was in the snow all the time. I was seeing changes to the snow. It coincided with what scientists were telling us. I kept trying to talk myself out of it, and then I remember writing on a piece of paper, together we can protect our winters. That together was key. And fast forward, 10, 12 years, and one of the things I'm most proud of is that I'm just a spoke in the wheel, that it's taken on its own life form. That's what I'm most proud of, that it's this group, and it is truly this group effort.
There's strength in numbers. Jeremy has seen this through his work with Protect Our Winters. My friend Rachel Schmidt saw it too, through her past role as director of the Montana Governor's Office of Outdoor Recreation, and Rachel's dedication to looking at the numbers behind the outdoor rec economy is part of a growing trend of states that are seeing the real economic value in protecting wild places.
This is my office. I like to be surrounded by maps. Montana and other states have made a very conscious decision to say, hey, outdoor recreation is about way of life and it's about economic vitality. And we're talking big numbers too. We're talking 5.1% of Montana's economy. What supports that? Our rivers, our access points, our healthy habitat. We all love to talk about the big fish we catch. So around the conversation of recreation, we can find these common threads in our lives to establish more connectivity to have productive conversations. There's so much potential for positive impact. I just feel like the sky's the limit.
Downriver still is the confluence of the Flathead and Clark Fork rivers. Here we fished with Rick Crawford, founder of Emerger Strategies. Rick is a sustainable business consultant who guides companies toward carbon neutral and zero waste operations.
My vision is to help the fly fishing industry go carbon neutral. I think that fly fishing is a small of enough industry that you can more quickly right this ship. But I also think it's important to prove first that it can be done. So if we can have a smaller industry that does it, then other industries will want to catch on. Say, well, if the fly fishing industry can do it, well, why can't surfing? Why can't climbing? Why can't any outdoor recreation? To be fortunate enough to have these experiences that we have as anglers, and to not do everything that you could to protect it for future generations is irresponsible, and in my mind now as a father, unacceptable. The way that I found sort of my voice, I guess, is, and my little way to try and do what I can is to help businesses, because I don't think that we're going to end capitalism anytime soon. So if we can do it better, yeah, let's do that. Let's go carbon neutral.
Really good day today. We went from Montana, Idaho to Washington State. We fished water in all 3 states. We caught no fish. I'm gonna lie to my wife. When she asks how many fish we caught, I'll be like, a lot. Tons, actually. Yeah, don't ever let the fishing get in the way of a good fishing trip.
Drop after drop, past dam after dam, we make our way to Wenatchee, well, just upstream in Leavenworth, Washington. That's where Russ Ricketts lives. Russ grew up fishing, but he watched the number of steelhead and salmon decline year after year So he decided to stop.
Here, come here, come here. Look at this. Watch this. These are big fish. And watch what happens here. Like, look at this little pink salmon come in here and get in and amongst these 30-pound fish. You ever see that movie Twins with Danny DeVito? And here's DeVito and there's Schwarzenegger. That is a proud fish. Like, that is a really big fish. I've always equated fishing to being like, we're going hunting with a rifle, and you say, that looks like a likely spot for an animal. I'll just shoot right there, and maybe I'll catch it. You know, maybe I'll kill something. Fishing's like a pursuit for dreamers, you know, and there's this eternal optimism with fishing. And at a certain point, maybe that optimism wanes a little bit. I kind of had like some seminal moments where I started to go farther afield up into the mountains and get up into the headwaters. There hasn't been fishing on the Wenatchee River in any real sense. Like, there was 1 year where they fished for steelhead in the last like 25 years. So steelhead are endangered, spring chinook are endangered, bull trout are endangered. And it became like, ooh, cool, film a fish, to like, wait a minute. The realization hit that like, these fish are going extinct. It became a little bit more of a mission at that point. Snorkeling is the diametric opposite of fishing. Like, there's not that eternal optimism. You see everything. I just get in there and I take a look around. And like, oh, well, I know exactly what's here now. You know, and a lot of times what's exactly there is exactly nothing. You start to ask questions like, why isn't there any fish? And that's the moment where you turn from a user to kind of like a steward of that resource. You know, like, there's this incredible knowledge base that fishermen build up. And it seems like the inverse is true with snorkeling. The more I do it, the less I know, or the more I realize I don't know. And so in that way, it's like a pretty cool journey that you just get dumber the farther you go along. Like this whole thing about the watershed, right? So a watershed is kind of like, it tells the story of that place. Like, the river tells the story. To think about your watershed as like this great accumulator. You know, it refines and concentrates all the good and all the bad. It's pretty easy to see how we are bound by our rivers.
The drop introduced me to many inspiring people, but among them are those with whom I feel wildly connected, the guides. As a fly fishing guide, I've wondered if even being here is too hard on the environment, and the fly fishing guides we met on the drops journey share a lot of my sentiment. But they also remind me that we have an important role out here as stewards, teachers, and role models. Guests from all over the world are looking to us to lead, to actually guide in applying the science-backed solutions we've learned. And we have the opportunity and the responsibility to report back to the people who can enact policy to protect it.
Thread the needle. Whoa, got him? Yes. Oh, shit. Hell yeah, Jake. Damn. On the Oregon coast, we're seeing the effects of climate change as our rains come later in the fall. When they do come, they're more extreme. And we've had several years of really dry winters. As a guide, I'm very open with my guests about the issues facing our fisheries and those threats. Definitely feel like it's my duty to share that with our guests that are coming to experience this this fishery, this resource, it's important that they know that these places don't exist without people like us fighting back.
If you don't help people see and know, understand and love these secret little spots, they will disappear. They will be taken from us because not enough people cherish that to stand up and protect it. Yeah, I totally think that every single person that comes in that door is a next or new or continuing conservationist.
I consider that real important in guiding, is to show people the proper etiquette and just, you know, the proper way to respect it, because, you know, it might not be here forever. That Columbia River is just an amazing highway, you know. It would have been amazing to see what it was before the dams, with unbelievable fish runs. Just to really see that migration happen all the way from the ocean all the way in, it's pretty cool. This is where they come by. This is it. And so we are right exactly where the Columbia River hits the Pacific Ocean.
I think the best way that I'm able to show people why you'd want to care about it is because I care about it, right? I'm passionate about it, and I want to pass this on. So I look at myself as, if I'm able to be a steward, why can't someone else be a steward also? If you're ever in a position where you actually can show others that you're the example, right? Lead by the example.
I used to give a human persona to my home water, but after following the drop from the top of the Continental Divide to the Pacific Ocean, I've altered this a bit. Now, it's more about the humans embodied as a river made of important drops where we can be powerful together. Whether we come from the headwaters, tailwaters, glaciers and snowfields, ponds, back eddies and sloughs, we meet at today's confluence to save each other and ourselves.
Hey.
Woo!
Nice.
Man, that is awesome. I need to run out and start doing something right now.
Nice job, you guys.
Yeah, brilliant piece, you two.
Pretty fun. Hey, who you got there, Liam?
Yeah, who's that?
Hey, Carmick. I see you. Right on. It's still even. Love it. Well, good. Well, thank you again so much. I'm psyched to be able to bring in some of the people who we've got waiting in the wings here. Dave, what we got?
Yeah, we got, at first I was just going to ask really quickly, Liam, might be reiterating what we did beforehand, but did you learn anything new through the process of making this film? Mic on. Turn your mic on.
You might have a baby crying in the back too.
Is that what it is?
As I was saying, I learned a ton.
There we go.
Yeah, I learned a ton, but I guess to sum it up in like my biggest takeaway was that the film and the whole process of making this film, it shrunk the distance between the top of the watershed and the Pacific. It kind of seems like this enormous journey when you think about where the snow hits the mountains and then goes down into the Middle Fork and then all the way out to the Pacific. But having actually, traversed that distance, it's a way shorter than you would think. And so I guess both metaphorically and physically, yeah, the distance from the top of the watershed to the bottom, that was kind of my big takeaway. The planet's smaller than we think.
Cool. How about you, Hilary? Anything that you
Yeah.
gleaned from the process?
Yeah, for me, it was that we only got to feature here a handful of people who were doing these things every single day. It wasn't like they thought of something cool to do for the film. This is the thread in their lives. This is what they're doing, and that's just who we featured in this film. But along the way, we met so many people who have changed their business models, changed their livelihoods, adjusted their families in order to do something that can be one of those small processes that can scale up. So for me, that was something that I think I didn't expect. I thought we were going to be going looking for some of these people, but they were along the whole way. So I think that's the important part about it being these drops, these people who are doing these things that can then scale up for systemic change.
Totally agree. Since this is a science-based film, we actually have Dr. Faegre in the wings. I'd like to bring him in really quick here.
I'll click out since Hilary and him kind of have that old
Absolutely.
relationship, but
we'll get back to you in a few.
And watching.
Right on.
Dr. Faegre.
Hey, I know you're there.
There he is. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
What'd you think?
Oh, fabulous movie. I think it puts a very visual and powerful image-based look at the science that we do. And so I think that this is the way you communicate with people. Oftentimes it's not with the numbers or the models, it's with this this visual connection to the landscape. So I think it was an excellent way of doing that.
Well, you clearly had an impact on dear Hilary's life, both professionally as a guide and an environmental advocate. What sort of changes have you seen over the past 20 years or longer that maybe the movie didn't really have time to delve into as far as you would like to have seen?
Well, I think that when you're looking at the headwaters being along the Continental Divide that includes Glacier National Park, the glaciers are kind of an icon of climate change. And so I think it's important to recognize that what happens in the headwaters propagates all the way through this drops journey to the ocean. And of course, the headwaters are not doing well. As you know, with climate change, we've lost a vast majority of the glaciers in the park in the last 150 years, from about 150 to 27. And the remaining ones that are large are about 40% smaller than they were just a few decades ago. In fact, we did some work looking at 1966 to 2017 and looked at how many of the glaciers had disappeared and gotten much smaller than that. To sort of humanize that, my wife visited Grinnell Glacier as a child in 1967. So it's within her lifetime, her time that since she visited as a child, that all these kinds of things happened. And to humanize that further, I've led groups up to various glaciers like Grinnell Glacier, and I've seen this with my own eyes. It's not just satellite imagery. And in 1997, I led then Vice President Al Gore up there, and he went into an ice cave at the foot of the glacier. Not only is that gone, you have to walk another 200 yards to get to the glacier.
Oh.
12 years later, I took Conrad Anker, the mountaineer, up there, and we climbed up on the glacier about 30 or 40 feet and did an interview up there. 12 years later, where we did the interview is all bare rock and the glaciers receded further. And now in another 12 years, we see that the glacier is so deflated, meaning that the surface elevation went down because it melted and got thinner and actually looks kind of pathetic. Now, when you go to visit Grinnell Glacier, you go with the rise and you have to walk downhill to get to the glacier as it's kind of resting against the cirque wall. So these are, for me as a scientist, you know, I've got the numbers, but these are the kinds of impacts that climate change makes for me personally.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I'm kind of speechless on that. I mean, I think we've collectively seen similar changes, but that really, at least it draws a very vivid picture in my mind as to how much change has occurred in such a short period of time. That's crazy.
But scientists are humans living on this planet too, and having these personal experiences is something that we get to see being here in this big outdoor classroom that's Glacier National Park.
Yeah, actually, another major factor that wasn't brought up in the film too much is forest fires. And so one of the issues with large landscapes being converted from a conifer canopy that catches snow and retains snow is that you have a lot of that snow melting earlier because you have the bare ground, all the blackened tree stumps that absorb more heat energy and melt the snow around them. And so again, what happens at the headwaters propagates down because you have then warmer waters. And of course, as you know, your cold water fisheries, all of them that you've talked about in this film, need that kind of cold water. So if the headwaters are starting to get warmer, then downstream warms even more quickly. And so these are some of the kinds of problems that we see that are accelerating now with fire season being 76 days longer, larger fires that burn everything right down to bedrock. And so it's very hard for trees to repropagate when you actually burned everything down to bedrock. It puts it back, in some cases, hundreds of years. So as these happen in the headwaters, you'll get not only less water, you'll get warmer water. And then I think we alluded to the fact that the timing is important. If you had all the same amount of snow, but it all melts earlier, it doesn't matter if you retained all that snow, it's still not available ecologically when it needs to be. So these are some of the changes.
Do you, obviously we just watched this film that is touching on climate change. Do you feel or sense a sort of an upwell of interest and curiosity and maybe even actionable items in activism towards climate change right now?
Well, I think as people see these profound changes, and certainly this film helps with making those clear, people can't avoid this forever. Humans are very good at denying. We don't like to change, and this is understandable. But now the changes are so profound and so global, they're happening everywhere, that now it's just become part of pretty much everyday life for a lot of people.
So this might be putting you on the spot a little bit, but we have steelhead salmon and other anadromous species that are endangered, threatened, nearly extinct in various parts of this watershed that we're discussing here. Is there a balance to being able to continue to fish for them ethically and still be, quote unquote, protecting them? Do you see anything? Do you see that at all?
That's of course a policy-oriented question. And as scientists, our job is to provide the background information for making the most intelligent policies possible. And so there has been a terrific amount of work on, the degree to which various fish are affected by various climate changes. And ultimately, managers and policymakers have to make that balancing act. But that should be done in service of the citizens that elected those policymakers in the first place.
Absolutely. Hilary, you, I think, wanted to address, maybe bring Shane in and talk about how the film was able to access and pass through the tribal lands in the region, and maybe chat with Shane about how water is important to them.
Yeah, well, this drops journey is so cool when you look at it on a map. And then when you are doing it in person and you're going through and seeing where you are, there's this amazing reverence for the land that we are privileged to be able to access. And, this public land is native land. And when we were ready to kind of start to put this together and had these pieces and hadn't shot it all yet, and suddenly this pandemic hit. And, that's when we were all shut down. And of course, there's extra care given toward reservations too, to not be able to go there. So we missed this chunk of not being able to get that native voice. And so we're left with this reverence of like understanding our privilege and knowing what it was like to be able to work here and play here and film this, but not being able to hear from members of for example, the Blackfeet and the Chinook nations and the Confederated Salish Kootenai. And so Shane here is, he's a water lawyer and a member of a Salish Kootenai and a huge advocate for water professionally, and also a representative in the district that has elected him to also kind of stand up for water rights and land rights. So we're lucky enough to have Shane Morjou here, and thank you for being here. And I hope you kind of hope you liked the film and understand, ma'am, I wish we could have been able to go through some more of the Flathead and some more kind of Salish Kootenai land, but you know, that pandemic just screwed all that up. So hopefully we'll be able to do a follow-up.
Yeah, well, you know, thanks for having me. And I grew up on the Flathead Reservation, and we have the Mission Mountains that run through there. I grew up, you know, near the water, near Post Creek, the Jocko River, the Flathead River. Spent a lot of time on Flathead Lake. And honestly, when I watch this film, I think about, you know, how, you know, our water resources and how irrigation projects have really gutted over the years. You know, we have an irrigation project that really ran across the entire face of the Mission Mountains and intercepted pretty much every single stream. You know, those blue ribbon trout streams that we don't have anymore, that are gone, where I hear stories from people and see pictures of salmon, and they were completely destroyed. And so it's something that we obviously, you know, are very committed to making sure we do everything we can to restore a lot of our streams. But, you know, the water is important to us. It's, you know, I remember I grew up hunting and fishing my whole life on the Flathead Reservation. And I remember my dad would take me and use me to try and scare deer out along the river. They were supposed to be for me, but I know that they were for him every time he had me do it, to try and spook them out of there for him when we were hunting. And when you look back, you realize how all of those hunts, all the fishing trips that we did, how we were always near water, and how those experiences shaped my worldviews. And our elders back home, and those who were gone, my great-grandfather was Chief Charlo. Our family has always instilled in me and our Salish Kootenai people that water is sacred, that we have to protect our water, both the water levels, the quality in-stream flows for our fish, our wildlife, and everything that descends from it. And we've never lost touch with that, because we know our future is dependent on water and resources. We know there's importance to leaving water in stream, and recognizing that we have to maintain a balance as our climate does change. And we don't have to take all the time and extrapolate. You know, the CSKT, we own roughly 90% of the land around the lower Flathead River on the reservation. And it's why we protect the lower Flathead River corridor from development. As an attorney, I worked on the Salish Kootenai Water Compact, the National Bison Range transfer, which was part of that settlement. And through all of those major initiatives, we always kept our resources, our water at the center, because we know without them, part of our identity is lost. We're connected to them. They depend on us to protect them, to give them life, just as they've done for us, and continue to do for us. So we take these things very serious. And our compact settlement funds, I'll just add, we just had a major settlement that I'm sure Hilary has tracked over the years, because it's a big deal in this part of you know, our country. And as I mentioned, that drop of water, you know, I think about how so much water starts from our mountains and pushes across to all those agricultural uses for all the wildlife, all the fishers, the guides, and part of that compact, we made sure we had funds in that settlement to put in fish screens and ladders to prevent entrainment and allow passage where it's appropriate. We made sure that we have modernization and rehabilitation funds for the Flathead Indian Irrigation Project to improve water quality and in-stream flows. We know that temperature matters, and as temperature changes, you know, the fisheries change, and that's something we know. And we've done some amazing stuff with our scientists, because we've been measuring water levels and water temperature for almost 20 years. And that irrigation system that I just mentioned is 1,000 miles of canal across the reservation. So we're very excited about getting that done and getting that it got passed at the Congress, because now we can focus on restoration and damages caused by a lot of this work and the continuous climate change, and work on erosion and stream restoration. The last thing I'll say is we do have a hydroelectric facility, and we operate that on a base load as a base load facility and not a ramping facility, because we know that takes stress off of fisheries. And I will say that that dam is actually a naturally occurring dam. And so where we have that dam where it was put in was traditionally a dam, but we know that that takes stress off of fisheries too. So, there's a lot of things that we're doing, including cultural waterways ordinances. We take our fisheries and our connection to all of these resources very serious.
Amazing.
That's awesome, Sharon.
Yeah, Dave and I were talking about earlier how, we love to have this water to ski on and snow form and to fish on and everything. But to hear you talk about the importance of it culturally and as this sacred thing that can't be lost, it just can't, it's not an option, I think is something that we all need to remember. It's not just about our skiing and fishing.
Yeah, no, we appreciate that. And, we recognize that there's more to our water than, I just feel like this mindset is always to use as much as we can. We heard a talk about capitalism and we can't change that, and being carbon neutral is a way to think about things. And we know that you can balance things and treat things right. There's so many things in this film that I think it's so encouraging to hear people doing right, to be, recognizing the things that we can control within our grasp, that we have within our control, that we can change and continue to make positive change for.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you.
Hey, Shane, what, if you can briefly touch on it, just in the tribal lands, what are some of the more obvious changes that you've seen with how they relate to the water and how you use them or rely upon it?
So for us, we fish a lot. We manage all the resources on all the water resources on the reservation. And so we're always constantly, we have a lot of folks who obviously fish and hunt back home, making sure that our water uses for, our local water uses are taken care of as well as important to us. But I mentioned the cultural waterways ordinance, which is something that we're almost finished up with. That actually is a designation right now for the lower Flathead, which is right now would recognize climate change impacts, protect it from future dam construction, prohibit mining, encourage restoration, and look at the threats, whether it's agricultural or, putting pesticides into the water, those sorts of things. Something else that we've done that is, I think, really awesome and forward thinking is we put in wetlands, and we continue to put in wetlands to clean water before it goes back into our streams. And so those are just some of the things that, our tribes are doing to try and find ways to ensure that our water stays clean, because, we use it for all the things we traditionally have and all the things that we need it for today, whether it's for, municipal uses or for your home.
Mm-hmm.
So one more quick question for you. There's been a shift in native rights to public land, particularly down in California. Do you see this shift extending to other states and other indigenous people around the country?
As far as, what do you mean by like native rights?
Like with regards to protection and water resources, irrigation, dam removal, stuff like that?
Yeah, I think tribes are always, we're always trying to, make sure that, California's a little bit different than us because, like for CSKT, we have what we call a Stevens Treaty, which ensures a right to fisheries. And so we manage those fisheries because we had the foresight when we had our treaty to say, these are the things that are important to us and that we depend on. And so part of that settlement that I mentioned earlier is ensuring that we have in-stream flows and protect those fisheries. There are tribes doing different things, like taking out dams in different places. And certainly it's hard because the different types of agreements and stuff we have are all a little bit different. And so even like with CSKT, we're the only Stevens Treaty, like similar to Washington, Stevens Treaty tribe in Montana. So the types of things that we manage within our treaty is going to look a little bit different than what some of those tribes are doing in California.
Yeah, cool. So interesting.
Awesome. So Hill, or hi, Larry, you often reference that there are solutions to our issue at hand that we're discussing with climate change. Do you have any specifics, like solutions at all that you are willing to share, that you want to dump on the table and have people sort of gobble up and try to run out the door with?
Well, I think that if you run down the solutions that we have from this film, starting with Jeremy Jones, like being brave and deciding that there needed to be a way to encourage professional athletes to go and speak to their elected leadership and to use their influence in Washington and in their states. If you go downriver a little bit more and see how Emerger Strategies is coaching people on how to change their businesses, like yours, Dave, became the very first fly shop in the entire country to go carbon neutral. That's such a big deal and such huge influence for the rest of us. I just immediately, when I saw you do that, said, teach me, how do we do this? And you've been so kind to work with me on making my own fly shop carbon neutral. And we just see it start to go, go, go. And we move down a little bit more and we see that state offices, government offices like Rachel Schmidt's are prioritizing and publicizing the importance of the outdoor economy and where climate fits into that. And then we go down and we see where fishing hobbyists and recreationalists are now using their skills to gather important data. And we go down further still and we see these guides who have now decided to speak up and speak out as not just being in the center seat, but kind of front and center in the conversation to protect the planet, and that they have become role models. They're not just like, waiting hand and foot on people. They're helping, they're these leaders within this climate action. So once you, as we talked about in the film, take those small processes and scale up, that's where our systemic change now has this influence behind it. So now we can go forward and demand systemic change. So when we start to have all of these people who are doing these strong things collectively be drops together and meet at the confluence and speak up and speak out, now we have this power to drive the systemic change that we need at local levels, at state levels, at our national level, and then on a global scale to try to do like what happened today, encouragement to reduce emissions by 50%. That's huge. That didn't come just, out of the brain like that for no reason. That came because of the constituents, people speaking up, showing what they're doing in their own lives and in their own businesses and their own livelihoods, and saying, this is what we're doing. It needs to scale up and be a bigger systemic solution.
Right. We are providing the bandwidth for politicians to make those decisions on our behalf, and that's super important. Shane, I wanted to thank you really quick for stepping in there and providing that awesome insight on what water means to you and your tribes and what you've been working on tirelessly in your position. Thank you.
Thanks,
Shane. Yeah, thanks, guys. Great job.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hilary, really quick, small things that you see people can do to make become some of those drops that you're talking about.
First thing I would say is just get your senators and representatives' phone numbers stuck onto your fridge and get ready to call them at any chance you get. Some people think that doesn't work, but we've seen that it does. And so just get used to continuing to not give up. I know your dogs are tired, but you got to stick with it. Yeah. So yep. I want to give people some stuff, give stuff away. If right. We're at a live theater right now, this is when I'm like throwing hats and coolers and stuff like that. So.
Absolutely. I was just going to add one thing to that, and that is that I think we forget how valuable how we spend and where we spend our dollars are too.
Yeah,
it's as
sure.
powerful or more powerful than voting. So when you find people that are doing the things that you see as positive in light of this change that we're talking about, that's where you need to be spending your time and your money and getting involved with those people too.
Yep. Pocketbook for
Wrapping this up. Sorry, Hilly, what?
Yes, no, I agree with you.
So we want to give some stuff away, correct?
Heck yeah.
So with thanks from who you mentioned earlier, Patagonia, Yeti, Orvis, and POW, Protect Our Winners. There will be 2 prize packages offered randomly to 2 of the people that were in the room today. And I believe they're going to let the winners know tomorrow. I think that's correct.
Whatever you say.
Okay, I am the deity. Yes, I was told that is correct. Do we want to bring Liam in again really quick for the end and just say a big thank you to you guys for making this, to you two for making this, and everybody else?
Thanks to Liam. It's so cool to be able to have something in your mind. And in this case, when Eben was like, wouldn't it just be crazy and cool if we could see a drop of water go from the top of the continental divide to the ocean? And Liam's like, it shall be done. That happened.
Easy.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it was not that easy. He put all of his blood, sweat, and tears into it for 2 years.
You made it sound easy right there. How long did this take to make, really quick, Liam?
Oh man, I don't know the hours or how clocked in or out, but I guess it was like 2 Mays ago that we started, and then we got a little bit stalled out with the pandemic. So production kind of went on hold with a little bit of the film left to go. But yeah, I guess all in all, about 2 years with a little pause in the middle there for this pandemic. But wow. Yeah, that was about it.
It's a lot of elbow grease to put into a 20-minute
film. It was, yeah. It was,
Thank you for making the effort, you two, and everybody else.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Dave, for being involved. It was cool to hang out with you along the way, I think.
Wish it could have been more.
Yeah, agreed. We'll do another one here soon, hopefully. But I think a cool thing you just mentioned is just like the voting with your dollars kind of thing, because that was something we talked about at your shop that we didn't get to include in the film, but I think that's a really cool point. Yeah. And something for the audience to take away is, vote with your dollars every day. Support the companies that are doing cool things for the planet.
Yeah.
The next movie is called The Buck. And you follow the dollar from where it's spent to where it goes and how it touches everybody along the way.
Yeah. Let's do this.
My parting comment was every time I watch this, like every other film I see, when you pay close attention to it and your soul is involved in it, you just grab little tidbits each time you see it that kind of stick to you a little bit more until pretty soon that whole film is inside you. And I want to really congratulate everyone that was in this film for their poignant statements. Kate, Lyle, Barrett, Shane, Dr. Fagry, you two, of course, Russ Ricketts, I think one of the more emotionally charged sections of the film, just by being so tangible with what we're talking about underwater. What a terrific piece. I'm so proud to be here doing this, and to have had this much, where's the camera? Yeah. That much of a piece in it, and proud to call you two very good friends of mine, and thank you again for making the effort to put this together.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, thanks. The feeling's mutual, Dave. Appreciate the help.
And Liam, thank you so much. Congratulations and great job.
Yeah, and thank you to POW for the platform here, and to the sponsors again for helping you guys make it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Sure. And we're going to do it all over again here in a minute.
Yeah.
That's right.
We'll
Wait.
do it a second time.
Woohoo! We recorded the whole thing, so we're just going to hit a button and it'll replay it.
Yeah, let's do this.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
Yes, thank everybody for sure.
Thank you, everyone.
Yep.